I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am, I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready to slow down. Just slow down. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am, I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready to slow down. Just slow down. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now.
Welcome, ladies and gents, to Tier or F5 of PSGL. We are finally getting underway with this season, and what a season I'm looking forward to this to be. I am not alone. I'm joined by Daniel. That way. How are you doing, Daniel?
I'm very good, thank you, Reese. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Spent most of the day feet up, relaxing, and then stressed as soon as I got to this desk. But the stress is good. The stress is good because it's a stress of, I want to get this right. I want to make sure we entertain you all. I've told the drivers, pep talked them, said, guys, entertain me.
Excellent, good. Well, hopefully we're going to get a good bit of entertainment from these guys. It's, of course, PCF5 here in PSGL. We've got a mixture of returning and rookie drivers in our placements this season, including the reigning PCF5 champion. That being, of course, when I grab their name just here, Alexander Johansson. Scored 5 victories, 2 second places, and 4 pole positions last season. So I think definitely within a shout, I think it's fair to say. Of course, because we've got a bunch of rookies in the field, it's going to mean that we're going to have a few unknown quantities, though. People with differing levels of experience, whether that be in sim racing in general or in the PSGL format, where, of course, there are less assists available. So, lots to be getting on with today. And then, of course, we're going to a fantastic venue, virtually, of course, that being the site of the Austrian Grand Prix at the Red Bull Ring Spielsberg. So, in terms of that one then, Reese, obviously, low downforce circuits. We've got all sorts of things being said at the moment in the F1 community about 0-0 wings. Do we reckon we might end up seeing some of those today?
I feel 0-0 wings is going to be good for more straighter line circuses. So your likes of your Monza, maybe you might see those in, it's gone out my head, Saudi Arabia, where the straight lines come out a bit easier. That being said, I wouldn't put it past somebody to give it a crack on Austria because of how powerful 0-0 wings are. In terms of this track, another thing we've got to note about it is track limits is quite horrible here. It's so easy to invalidate. Areas of concern is turn 1, turn 3, turn 6, and the kind of road towards turn 7, turn 8's an area, 9 to 10, and even the exit of 10. We're going to see a lot of possible invalidations there. So pumping in some of the best laps, it might come down to that last corner where we see the mistakes happen.
Might be, and certainly people came a cropper of that in the real world, of course. In the Austrian Grand Prix, we saw well over 40 various lap times deleted over the course of that weekend. And it was not the greatest time for those drivers involved, I'm sure. Certainly not for Sergio Perez, who, of course, without the sprint race, would have started well outside the top 10 after having his Q3 and part of his Q2 times deleted because of track limits. And, you know, with all the greatest respect in the world to our PCF5 drivers, they may not quite be on F1 driver level. So we may see even more times being deleted, more penalties being dished out, yet to come, of course. But as I say, it's going to be a long old day, lots of racing, lots of action, and hopefully we're going to see some racing between these guys and pushing those limits to the absolute limit, I suppose.
As I mentioned, I've given them pep talk. A few of them have definitely said they're up for some action. Elliot, one of the drivers, has definitely said he'd be putting his elbows out. He personally DM'd me that. So, Elliot, if you're watching this, I'm holding it to you. We're still waiting for the drivers to actually get in the lobby. This lobby was set up a little bit later. That being said, you've familiarized yourself with some of the drivers, and you know you've seen some of the rookie names pop up. Who do you think is going to be the one to stand out, bar the champion from last season?
Well, it's one of these things where you can speak to racing drivers, and of course, whether they be in the virtual or the real world, they're going to talk themselves up, aren't they? They're going to think to themselves they are the hottest property on the market at the moment, and so we've got a number of people who are talking themselves up. One, for example, would be Cozzy in the Red Bull. As an introduction to them, they say in their own words, they are 19, they started playing the F1 games 1 year ago, and they started racing in a league smaller than PSGL, and then after 6 months they saw they were pretty fast with the racing line. So they turned it off in December last year. They then started racing with no assists this year in January, and after 3 months they signed up for PSGL and got into F4. They raced in 2 races in F4. First one they scored points starting from last, and then the second race they won. So now they're in F5 and looking to dominate everything. So Cozzy then has they've put the marker down. I think it's fair to say they have put it out there. They've said, right, okay, I'm going to be in the championship hunt. So let's see how things go for them today in their Red Bull at the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, that's quite a bold statement to say that you've won in the tier below and to have points on quite an early race point. It will make yourself a massive target, and now we've put it out there. A lot of people will be looking at that Red Bull, so we'll keep an eye on there. I've got to say there's a couple of names that... There's one that rings a bell. Days Rhombus. Now, he's come from the Xbox side of the scenes. I cannot for the life of me remember which tier, because I feel I've raced against him, so it would be the lower end of a section. I don't think it's been the recent one, so it's not... I think he's come off assists, is my honest answer. But I have seen that name. It is a strong name and a midfielder constantly. So I'll keep an eye out for Days Rhombus and see what he can pull out of the hat. So all 20 drivers are technically in the lobby. We are just waiting for the go-ahead, which I think I've just seen. I think we might be doing it. We might be going ahead with this race. No. Nearly.
You would hope so. I think that there's been a little bit of confusion as to whether or not I would be joining as a spectator, and I've just informed the coordinator that I'm not, because we have the wonderful power of the internet and Discord, and also it's much easier to commentate when you can see the same thing as what all the wonderful people at home can see. So that's the main thing. So hopefully, yes, as you say, we should get going relatively shortly. In terms of Days Rhombus, it's fun you should mention them, because both they and their Alfa Romeo teammates, Dimitri Minic, have both not gotten back to me as far as a quick sort of reach out, as far as then a bit of information on them and sort of where they come from and what their hopes are going into the season. So in terms of that, then it's Alfa Romeo, a bit of a mystery. But then, of course, that's why we've got you here. We've got the inside man, Reese, of course, with the information from the Xbox side of things, that dark part of the internet.
A dark part? Is that's how we're classing it? Is the dark part of the internet?
Well, I mean, understand.
Oh yeah, fully understand what you mean. As I think
same then with. Oh, are we going in?
I think we are. Sorry, my camera's absolutely gone. So, you know what? Let's talk through the track, Daniel.
Let's do it. Yes, absolutely. So we've got this 10-turn circuit then, and we've got 3 DRS zones. One on the run-up from turns 1 to 3. Turn 2 technically does not count as a corner in a Formula 1 car, but it's there anyway, and we will talk about it, I'm sure. Then got the run from turn 3 to 4 with another DRS zone, and then finally down the start-finish straight from 10 to 1. Of course, as you've already mentioned there, we've got track limits as something to bear in mind. Turns 9 and 10 in particular will be those areas where we may have to keep a bit more of a keen eye in terms of what the drivers are doing and where they may or may not be losing their lap times, whether that be in qualifying or whether that be in the race itself. Now, interesting point made by the race on their YouTube channel with regards to track limits, but drivers in the real world have been complaining about track limits after Austria, and of course mentioned at the top of the show there, over 40 lap times were deleted from the race. But when you look at a lot of the other corners that are also fast, high-speed corners where you could potentially go too far, they have gravel traps, whereas turn 9 and 10 do not. They have runoffs. So that's where then the drivers will start to get a little bit greedy. And let's be honest, they won't be doing their jobs properly if they are not going absolutely for every single bit of advantage that they possibly can.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you want to push those limits. You want to try and capture as much as you can. And you're going to see, I feel with this F5 tier, I feel some will definitely be the people that's going to go all or nothing. But I feel there's going to be some that are going to go, you know what, I just need a time on the board. I'm going to play it safe than sorry and see what I can do from there.
Absolutely, yes. And of course, because of the revised regulations for this year, in terms of not just following cars and so on, all these things which I'm sure we'll get talking about in the fullness of time and during the race, but in qualifying especially, you no longer have that medium tyre that was being used by drivers to, try different strategies and so on, because of course you can now start on any tyre you wish. So as a result, the drivers have now got 4 soft tyres heading into this single short qualifying session, which means then that they've got plenty of opportunities on fresh sets of boots to be able to go around and bomb in a lap time. So as a result, I think you're absolutely right. We're going to be seeing drivers going in for that, nice, safe banker lap time initially, and then they'll start trying to wind on the pace after that. I wouldn't even be surprised around this circuit in particular if we see them trying 2 push laps on this soft tyre. But we'll have to wait and see, as now into turn 1 goes Cossi. And then through turn 1 they've gone there, then not being quite so aggressive on the inside curve at the apex there, but they're not being too aggressive either on the runoff of the exit. So up through turn 2, not really much of a corner in a Formula 1 car as we say, and then into turn 3. Nice, just tapping the apex again there, heading on up through over the top of the hill, opening DRS now for the 3rd and final time this lap. So down towards turn number 4 they go, nicely there, and then threading the car through, keeping the car in 4th gear through that corner as well. And this is also something that we may want to keep an eye on. Corners which may have been a 2nd or 3rd gear corner in previous games, expect to see 4th or higher gears being used through these corners because of the incredible amount of torque that these engines are producing under the current handling model. And look at that there, just a little bit of an invalidation going through turns 7 and 8.
It's so, as I mentioned, it was one of the areas, 7 and 8, you're going to invalidate, and it was a very good run from the Red Bull, but a couple of lockups I've heard from the sound definitely hindered. Will Gibson will set the time of 104.6, and respectable, I'll give him that. I feel we could possibly see these at the 103s, as Finno McKay also gets a faster time of 104.4. Also, if I pronounce any of your names wrong, please let me know in DMs.
In Doc Martens, do they have to be wearing those? DMs. It was a joke. Never mind. So, we'll crack on then.
That took me so long.
Clearly my humour My humour, don't worry, you'll get used to it over the course of the season as we commentate together, but it's all silly jokes like that. So, as we then watch board with the hats of Norbert, and then into turns 9 and 10 we go then. We're still valid as we head over the curbing in the exit of turn 9, into turn 10 we go, and then up towards the line. It's all good as long as they don't end up spinning out or something like that, spontaneously spinning down towards the start-finish straight, but they've not done so. They are 3/10 off the pace. P8 then for Norbert there, which is good for them. Cozzy then, what will they choose to do? Are they on a push lap or are they on a cool down lap? We'll find out in just a moment's time when they come round the final turn. They've managed to keep it valid this time, and then as they come around the final corner, very close to just exceeding track limits there, but they haven't done so, and across the line they go, and it's 7/10 shy. Oh dear.
Yeah, Cozzy, you said about Cozzy bigging himself up, you know, winning a race in Tier 4. 14th from the get-go, not really a strong time, especially being 7/10 down, but is this a safe lap? Is this one that is just putting on the board, or will we see a faster time come of it? We'll see later on. Maceo, or I think that's how you say his name, hasn't set a lap. Is he going to set a lap now? Because he's the only driver that, well, him and Danny, only two that need to set a lap time right now. He is.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a mixture of drivers all in the mix now. Mixture of drivers in the mix. No, that's not really good enough. I'm going to have to think of more ways of saying that. So as we go through then, so interesting to see then that the top all the way down to 7th position, all within 3/10 of one another. Now, just to put 3/10 into context for those of you who may be watching us for the first time, firstly, hello. Second, in terms of 3/10 of a second around Austria, now, of course, it's a very, very short lap around here, so you'd expect those gaps to be very small, as they are, but 3/10, that can be something as simple as not quite getting your acceleration right, getting that little bit of wheel spin on corner exit, or it could be something like locking up a tyre, because, of course, no assist. So, as a result, we may well see some drivers puffing some tyre smoke over the course of the Grand Prix, especially when we start seeing some battles forming on circuit, because, of course, in these cars, it is much easier to race than last year in last year's game.
Absolutely, and Mace is looking flawless at the moment. He's getting his lines, getting his angles correct in entry. It's whether he's got the acceleration correct, as you mentioned, coming around that corner 101. It's going to be a 104 mid, and there you go, 104.7. So it's good, but as mentioned, it's fine margins here. We need to really be pushing quite a lot to be in for the tops. Realistically, you want to be in top 10 to start things off, to get a chance of getting an easy win.
Absolutely, yes. And in terms of this then, so obviously just mentioned before about how the top 7 all within 3/10, but just given that what we've seen there from the likes of Maceo, of course, that means then everyone down to 16th is roughly about half a second away from pole position. That's an astonishingly close gaggle of cars there, and then now we're on board with Mattia De Campo, who has set a purple second sector according to the track map. So now, as they head down into turn number 9 then, the car chucks into the inside there and runs really far out on the edge there. They haven't invalidated, interestingly enough. So now up towards the line we go. Whereabouts will they shape out here? And it doesn't seem as though they've improved on that lap.
I was going to say, I'm not sure on the ruling, but I think if you do exceed track limits, normally you'd have to void your lap. So I think that's why we're not seeing an improvement, because you get penalised with a... I need to reread the rules, but I think it's qualifying bans.
Okay, well, there you go then. So, no exploitation, especially not if you're on stream, because then you're definitely caught. So, now we watch then as Vincent Nyquist, another driver who, interestingly enough, has not been online while I've been searching for drivers to speak to. So I can't tell you very much about them, but I can tell you that they're currently P1 in the McLaren, and as a McLaren fan from the age of 4,
Yes!
that makes me very happy.
I am glad you're a McLaren fan. I've been a McLaren fan since 2009. So proud, happy, and glad that you are of the same matter. And already Vincent's 1/10 up on his time. He's looking to try and push this car into the 103s. I said this is possible, as he has been beaten. Jeremy's done a 104.1. He needs to do what he can. Coming round the final corner, is it enough to push it into the 103s? It's just shy, but it will be pole for now as a 104.0.
That's not a bad attempt at all, is it? Not bad at all. And you can see now that we're starting to see where maybe the pace in this field lies, because on both their first runs as well, it was Vincent and it was Jeremy at the top, and separated by hundredths rather than tenths of seconds. So these guys definitely the ones to be looking out for and to have an eye on as far as potential protagonists in this season, or at the very least in this race. In terms of Jeremy, I can tell you a couple of things about them. They say they started their experience in sim racing on F1 2021, participated in season 30 for PSGL, and was third in the division they finished in. They had a complicated season because it was their first season without assists, and for this season, they're hoping to win races and the championship. Ooh. So there we go. They're certainly getting off to a good start with second place provisionally on the grid. But now, as Fionn comes across the line, they threaten that front row start for Jeremy. It is third place for them, just 1/10 shy of the pace being set by their teammates. So early doors, it seems like McLaren have a very, very quick pairing here.
Absolutely, and I know we kind of said, Cozzy, you weren't doing too well to start off with. Look where he is now, he's up in 8th, so flexing it on the get-go might start to pay off, and I don't think, he's not on a lap, but 8th place for him, 3.5 tenths behind. There's wiggle room, there's definite wiggle room for him to go up the grid and join his Red Bull co-partner.
Absolutely. And of course, it's not just the Drivers' Championship. Excuse me, the drivers will be contributing, of course, towards their Constructors' Championship over the course of this season. And, as far as that's concerned, if you're looking at the likes of McLaren right now, then that's going to be a really good, strong start to the season if things were to finish, broadly speaking, as they appear now. We've still got 7.5 minutes to go in this session, in fact. We've seen so many lap times. It's so short a lap around Austria that we are already now 7.5 minutes away from the end here, and we've seen a flurry of times. But as I say, with McLaren at the top there, they're going to be looking to have a very good, strong march on that Constructors' Championship to begin with. And the likes then of Cozzy, they, of course, if it's much like the real world, if you're able to get two cars up into the same part of the circuit, it means you can then defend from other teams trying to then undercut you. Whereas if you've got just the one driver up front, two drivers in the same team alongside them, as we see here, Elliott invalidates their lap, so that's one for them to chuck away on this occasion. But now we see Maceo starting, I think, a new lap. There was no improvement there from them. Oh, and they are invalid, so they may well have overstepped track in the final corner. Because, of course, if you do it there on this circuit, or at any circuit, really, then it's deemed as gaining an advantage headed into your next lap as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to make a quick mention. We mentioned Elliott from the get-go. He's our actual tier coordinator, in-game coordinator as well. He said he'll get the elbows out. Well, he's got to be doing it from last place. He's currently 20th, nearly a second behind, which is massive in the eyes of racing. That's almost a century. If you convert it to our racing times, a second is a century. So there is definitely a lot of work he could do, and I feel he's not had the best of runs. His exit from 7 to 8 wasn't looking clean, and there's definite room for sure. Salah on a lap. He's coming around the final two corners. Keep it clean round here. Don't over-exceed the lines, but push the limits as you can. It's looking decent. This is going to go 104 mid. It's a 104.2. That's even lower than I thought, and that's the Mercedes 6.7.
That is, and that's a very, very good position for Mercedes to be in, because again, as I say, if they have two cars occupying the same part of the circuit, they can then play some strategy. They can then get themselves into a position to be able to put pressure on the Ferraris, the Hasses, and even the Red Bull in front as well. So, expect to see Mercedes coming on strong in the race, I think. But then in terms of the Ferraris, well, we're on board with one of them now. This being Kinty. And they, oh dear, and as I was about to start talking them up and talk about how good the lap was so far, they then become a victim of turn 3 in Austria, where the back end just comes round if you're a bit too greedy on throttle or you have too much entry speed, and as a result they've spun round, and that one is a lap to forget, I think.
Absolutely, it's so horrible, that corner. It takes just the slightest amount of throttle and you are done. You see yourself losing out. I'm just going to quickly jump to Vincent because he's on his lap and he's not improving. It is a plus on his lap time. You are on the cusp of going to the 103s. Vincent just needs to find something, and it's getting worse. It's now to a second, so I think he's just bailed his lap. He does have he does have another attempt to drop his lap time down to that 103 region. His rival, Jeremy, still in the pits, so wait to see what happens there.
Yes, we've just got under 4 minutes and 20 seconds now to go in the session, and all drivers have been able to set a banker lap time, which is of course good for them. It's the most ignominious start to a season if you don't set a time in qualifying because your attempts were invalidated. So good to see everybody's got a time on the board at least. But now, headed through turn number 4, is Elliott there? And they hopefully will get themselves onto terms with the rest of the field, because now everybody is within half a second except for Elliott. Meanwhile, Kinty is having another go. And down into turn 4 then we go with the Ferrari, of course, in the hands of Charles Leclerc in real life. This is a car which won this race, and so I'm sure they will have similar thoughts and designs on that achievement in the cockpit of this virtual Ferrari. So through turn number 6 they go then, keeping things nice and clean, using absolutely all the road they possibly could on entry, and opening up turn 7 as much as possible, then staying nice and tight on the exit of 8 before we then head down towards turn number 9, and the lap's been invalidated, into the pits we go.
Yeah, just taking a little too much of 8. It was looking so good, but when you just overestimate, and you don't, we also got to point out, some drivers like it from the camera view we had a moment ago, where you're from the top, the TV camera, but some drivers drive from cockpit, and that is a completely different view, and you have to kind of, you drive differently when you're in that cockpit, because you don't actually know where that line is in comparison to your car. So it's all down to wits and how you drive. So that could be one reason. It could also be that he was just pushing that hard and just completely forgot where that line was.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, of course, the other thing to mention about driving views in F1 22 is, of course, this is the first Formula 1 game to support virtual reality headsets. Now, having experienced that myself, I can tell you it is a bit of a game changer for those of you who like cockpit cam but find you're not quite as quick in it as, say, on the T-Cam, for the reasons that you mentioned there, because, of course, with the virtual reality, you get that peripheral vision, you get that depth perception, because you've got the 2 screens in front of your eyes. And then you also, because you're in the center of the car, anytime there's a little bit of a step out or something like that, you're able to sense it that little bit better than you would in T-Cam. And so you've got that little bit more chance of saving it. So the likes of, say, turn 3, as we're seeing Sally going through right now, and they've navigated that very nicely indeed. But had they started to, lose the back end, if you're racing in virtual reality or if you're in the cockpit view, then of course you can end up getting a significantly different experience in that position versus the T-Cam. But as we go around the next couple of corners, then into turn number 6 goes the Mercedes driver, and they're coming up toward that time split now, and they are up by 1.5, just over 1.5 tenths versus their previous lap time. They haven't invalidated through 8, which is incredibly important, of course, and they've used as much of the road as they can on exit. Into turn 9 we go then. Things are now hotting up for the Mercedes driver. If they improve by this much, then they will jump up the grid. Where is it going to be for Sally? Across the line they come, and it's 3rd on the grid. 2nd row on the clean side of the grid as well.
Absolutely.
Brilliant effort from them.
Brilliant run. Honestly, one of the best runs I've seen so far. Well, not the best, but clean, effortless, and he's made sure he's put himself in a position where he wants to be. That now is putting pressure on everybody below them to get into there. Dimitri just put himself into 3rd, so he's overtaken Salah by 2/100th of a second.
Absolutely. All of a sudden, that idea of Mercedes or McLaren or whoever it happened to be, the teams being close to one another, the teammates I should say, all of a sudden that seems like it's becoming less and less of a reality. And so we'll have to wait and see then what those other drivers are able to do. The likes of Fionn, the likes of Jerry Van Bussel, and the likes of Cozzy and so on. I mentioned Jerry there just because I thought that he was the Red Bull Blue. He's not. It's Cozzy, but there we go. Yare as well in the other Mercedes, another driver who is looking to be getting up the order and getting towards where their teammate is. Elliott disqualified from session for parking in a dangerous position.
Yeah.
So there we go then. That is not what you expect from your league coordinator, of all people.
No, it seemed like he ran off on turn 3. I don't know if he sustained damage, but he just didn't do anything from there. Vincent, I'm going to quickly jump to Vincent. He's coming around the final corner. That's looking pretty decent. He's at the 1 second, coming around the last corner. What can he do? Is it going to be in 103s? No! It's going to be a 104.04. What a run by him to solidify first place. And both Jeremy and Dimitri says, no, we can't improve. Is there anyone else left on the lap? It will be Jerry. Jerry crosses the line in 6th. It's now the people below 10th, which I think they are... Well, Norbert's gone over the grass. Fennick's going to go into the pit. So there you go. That's your grid for today. Vincent takes pole, and he does it in style with a 10th over everybody.
Certainly does. There is technically one driver still on a lap, but whether or not it's a fast lap or an in lap, I'm not entirely certain right now. That being Dazed Rhombus down in 19th currently. Half a second off, and no, into the pits they come then. So that is your grid order for today. So to give you the full rundown, that is Vincent Nyquist in first position, pole position with that 104.042. And then from them down, we then have Jeremy, then Dimitri, Sally, Danny, Co. We have Jerry Van Bussel, Fion, we have Kinty, we have Mattia De Campo, Rookie, Yare, however we're going to pronounce that over the course of the stream, I'm sure we'll decide. We then got Roman, and then we've got some pixelated, Norbert, there we go. Then Franek, Alex, Masio, Cozzy, Will, Dazed Rhombus, and then Elliot disqualified from qualifying. Cracky dingo.
Yeah, that's not good. Like, I don't know how he ended up in that disqualified kind of position, but he was in 20th. I feel that when you're in that point, you kind of just give in, which is sad to see, but some drivers do, and you will see this throughout some of the league races where people are running at the back. They might be a lap down, and they just end up going, know what? I'm not even going to take this torture. I'm just going to retire. Then you're going to get the other drivers who may be a lap down and just keep going to the very end, scrounging at the final points. But we'll see. We'll see if the likes of Elliot will keep with the pack. You know, yes, he's a second slower, but what can he do? You know, there's so much potential. That being said, what's your predictions on this race?
I think that you'd be unwise to bet against a pole sitter at the first round of the season. So Vincent Nyquist in the McLaren, definitely one to watch, I think. And then, of course, a good turn of pace from the likes of Sally up there in 4th in the Mercedes. So they may well be a dark horse in the race. But I think also those Mercedes and McLaren teammates certainly were showing good pace in the earlier part of qualifying. So whilst maybe their final runs in Q3 haven't quite gone to the same levels of success, being, you know, alongside their teammates at the sharp end of the field, it's certainly a couple of drivers who I think may have that performance in hand to then go forward if they don't make mistakes. But then, of course, qualifying is one thing, racing is quite another. So it's going to be something worth seeing in terms of how the demeanours change. When you're out on your own in your own little pocket of road, setting a lap time, that's one thing. When you're surrounded by 19 other cars, that is quite another.
Absolutely. Now, just a reminder, this is 2022. There has been a rule change. We mentioned it at the start of qualifying. We might as well remind you. If you're new and not familiar with F1, welcome. This is F1 Esports. We're going to teach you the ways very nicely. Drivers after qualifying will race on softs. Now, if you're familiar, you know that you're supposed to start on softs in the top 10. That rule's been scrapped. We're getting tyre choices of whatever you want. So we're going to see people on hards, we're going to see people on mediums. If you're really ballsy, we might even see you on softs. So let's see what these drivers are on. It seems to be Mace and Will Gibson only on mediums. And that means that they are going to go fast very early.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's two drivers thinking that, well, okay, on the balance of things, this is probably going to be a one-stop, probably medium to hard or hard to medium. And, you know, if you start on the mediums, then you're going to have that extra bit of traction off of the line. That can save you then a few extra positions in terms of that run up to turn number 1, which of course slows down very, very much indeed on this particular circuit. And then you've got then the added bonus of them being quicker just over the course of a lap. So then they can get the overtakes done early, they can get themselves up the order. I think this actually might be a very good strategy, because whilst everybody else is going to be squabbling and going to be out there for a long time, those two guys are going to pit earlier than everybody else. But then, on their fresh hard tires, they're going to be running in clean air, lap after lap, whilst the rest of the field continues to squabble on their old hard tyres. And that then means it's going to be a chase towards the end, I think, between perhaps the sort of the I want to say that Mason would probably be able to get themselves to contention of maybe the midfield, maybe even the high end of the midfield. I'm not sure whether from there they can quite get into race win contention, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. The other thing, of course, as well, is that by starting on mediums, you can cure a set of tyres and get ready to go if there is then an early race safety car. Now, of course, new for F122, we've got manual grid placement here. So the drivers will drive into their slots manually, they will align themselves, and then they can gain or lose that little bit based on where they park. And Sally there being one driver who has overstepped the marks ever so slightly. Same with Norbert as well, and with Roman. They've overstepped their marks, so that means the game will now reset them to a suboptimal grid slot. Now, we're just going to wait until the lights start to come on. And there we go. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. Lights out, and it's away we go for season 31 in PSGL and PC5, and it looks like a very good start from the pole sitter. They've been able to get it very nicely indeed, but we've got the Williams up the inside of Sally there. It's 3 wide into turn number 1. 4 round about 4th, 5th, and 6th on the grid. We've had a very good start from Fion there as well, but now all of that part of the pack is all bunched together. The top 3 have gotten away very nicely indeed. They're in their own little train, own little separate space of road, and look at that there. Dimitri's so close to the back of Jeremy that they're tapping their diffuser, tapping them round the corner. And now, as things start to calm down, it looks like the snake is starting to form throughout this field. Look at this then. We've got Dimitri headed down into turn number 4 now. They're safe from any attack behind, but someone who's not safe is Danny Coe. They've got now the Williams going round outside, but no, Danny's able to defend. Danny, in fact, may have even taken the position from the Williams there. So up into P number 6 for Danny Coe, and that is a good bit of opportunistic driving on the first lap from them.
Absolutely, very clean from all of them. Yes, the elbows came out, but nobody making contact. I thought Dimitri was going to go into the rear end of Jeremy in third, but the brilliant driving that we've got from F5 shows the car control that these guys have. DRS is not enabled until after the 3rd lap, so we might not see a large amount of overtakes just yet, but there definitely will be some opportunist moments coming up as this AlphaTauri, it's a bit far back to make a move, but the person in 3rd is looking to get ready as the top 3 have already broken away from Salah in 4th as the 2nd mark just got broken.
Absolutely, yeah, and that is absolutely what the top 3 are going to be wishing for, or certainly 2nd and 3rd. They are going to be hoping and praying that they can keep away from the chasing pack and keep them out of DRS range, because then that means they can focus on the leader, or at least that's certainly what Dimitri can do. Now Jeremy is in a bit of a quandary. They have to now focus on chasing down the leader, overtake them whilst they defend. And look, in terms of defence here, we've got Norbert now defending from Cozzy, the inside of the Red Bull driver, and the Hat is able to do what Mick Schumacher failed to do at Silverstone, take a place from a Red Bull.
I think,
and down towards 8 and 9 and 10 we go. Sorry, on you go, Reese.
I was gonna say I think Cozzy's not done yet. I honestly thought you'd finished, so I do apologise. Cozzy's still got the attack here. Good run through the corner as, hang on a minute, Norbert, where's he gone? He's gone completely wide, so he's actually lost a truckload of positions, and that's now freed up the gap for Cozzy. I was gonna say he's on the attack. Now that Norbert's gone, Cozzy's got a lot of work to close that gap up, because he's 8/10 behind and a train of cars behind them. I was going to make a point because Salah's now closed that 2nd gap, and that's very important because of DRS trains, because DRS is activated. When you're behind somebody, within a second you get the rear wing opening up. A train is when all the drivers behind you are within a second, and it makes it 10 times harder to overtake. If you can break the gap somewhere, it makes it easier for the pack ahead to pull away, and the person at the front of the next train will have to struggle and do all they can to fend off whoever is behind them. So it's important to pull away, and unfortunately the top 3 could not do that as Salah joins right back and brings the whole pack together.
Absolutely, there you go then. So everybody in the field from 1st down to 16th within a second of the car ahead of them. So now as a result, it essentially means that for all of those cars except for Vincent up at the front, whilst they do have DRS, they also essentially don't have DRS. The speed advantage they gain is negated by the car in front having an contact! Big contact there between Dimitri and Jeremy into turn number 3, and that sees the Red Bull driver getting a half spin round there at that corner after the Alfa Romeo goes into the back of them. And then the Alfa Romeo has not only done that, they've then been able to power on down and chase on after Vincent up in P1. And that has also meant that it's broken that DRS gap, that toe there, for Dimitri back to Sally, because Sally, rather wisely, jumping on the brakes to try and then avoid the incident that had happened up ahead of them. But now we've got all yellow flags in all parts of the circuit, and it looks like people are going slower. Is that just because we happen to have 3 yellow flags being waved, or do we have a virtual safety car?
It is a full safety car. We have Yuri retiring. I'm unsure for the reason why, but Yuri has retired, to full safety cars out. Who's that going into pits? Salah taking the early pit stop. Hello. What is the reason? I'm trying to capture him. Where's he going? He's in the pits. He's probably going to change tyres, but the question is this too early to do? It's definitely going to be way too early for a 1 stop, so they're clearly attempting the 2 stop here. Also to note, as well as the manual grid slot, you now have to time when you pull the car into the pits. So an added feature to the game, it makes it a bit more interesting, and also we do also see that the pit crew make mistakes as well, so time could be increased at random.
Certainly could, certainly could. And now then, as you see that Aston Martin safety car leading the field around. Another thing to note in this game in particular is the emphasis on tyre temperatures, especially when you're travelling slowly, whether that be on an outlap or under safety car conditions. Now, this is something which by pitting under safety car, you actually will end up losing less time than in normal race conditions. In addition to obviously things like drivers having to drive to a delta and all these other various things that usually would factor into pitting under safety car. It's also then the fact that you are then going into the pits, you're going to then end up coming out with cold tyres, as then the rest of the field have warm tyres, but as they're then trying to get tyres to stay in a temperature window that have then already started to lose their tread, you will then be able to just get your brand new tyres up to temperature nice and easily, get them into the proper operating window, and then keep them there. And not only that, that then means you then have a very good chance of making up some positions. Now, as far as a pit stop this early on the safety car, when everyone started on the hard tyre, with the exception of 2 drivers, of course, then that's one of these things where you then sort of think to yourself, okay, potentially there's some damage there that has been corrected as a result, you know, loss of front wing, for instance, or maybe even a puncture if there's been side-to-side contact or wing-to-wheel contact, something like that. So all these things that will factor in will make a difference, but if the pit stop has been made, I'm sure there will have been a reason behind it.
Absolutely. Talking of positions gained, Cozzy up into 9th, gained 8 positions. Days Rumbus up into 10th, has gained 9. But mainly Finno McKee up in 4th, gained 3. And he's in a good position because he's with the front lot. They haven't pitted yet, so they're still going to look towards that 1-stop strategy. Brilliant position to back up his teammate, Vincent at front. So I would pray and hope Finno is going to get punchy off the get-go. That rhymed really nicely.
Absolutely, you're a poet and you didn't even know it.
I know, I
So
feel
there we are.
honoured.
So as we start to see then the lights come off on the safety car, we get that message as well across the top of the screen. That means then that we will be going racing again under green flag conditions in a few moments' time. Wisely, Vincent is allowing that safety car to just peel away and get as far from the field as it possibly can. Now, I remember that there was a problem certainly on F1 2021, and whether that's been carried over into 22, I do not know. But if you got too close to the safety car on the restart, it would automatically apply your brakes, and do so to a greater degree than the player was capable of applying them. So as a result, you ended up seeing on the final couple of corners here, as now Vincent has gone, I think they've caught Dimitri napping there. That's a big gap they've already started to pull out on the Alfa Romeo driver, 6 tenths. 8 tenths, in fact, going through the final turn. And that then also means, look at this, then the McLaren teammate Fionn is right there with the Red Bull. Now, the Red Bull of Jeremy there, they've been able to recover quite well from their accident earlier on where they were tapped up the back by Dimitri. And of course now, because of that accident, you'd also imagine that there's going to be a fair amount of, okay, let's get revenge going through their brain at the moment. And as a result, we got up into turn 3 then. Everybody's behaving so far. But as they come out of the acceleration zone there, is that the McLaren now on a bit of a charge? I don't think so. I think that everybody is staying relatively well behaved so far, including the Williams here of Jerry Van Bussel. So into turn number 4 they go, keeping it nice and tight for the inside, and then running out on exit, and that's another good bit of running from them in pursuit of some higher points paying positions. The likes of Danny ahead, of course, managed to just get by them in the opening skirmishes. But now the Williams actually under a bit of threat from the Ferrari behind of Kinty.
Yeah, everyone keeping hold of their positions quite nicely. No one gaining, no one losing out, in a sense, unless they pitted. But yeah, the Ferrari pushing the rear end of the Williams, and he's close enough maybe to make a move, but you would have to use a lot of ERS quite early on to make overtakes before DRS comes back on. Now, DRS will reapply as of the next lap. It's only 2 laps now before it gets reapplied. Is anyone close enough to make a move? I think the only person really close enough is going to be this man, Danny, who's going to have to brake very late, but it's not late enough. A good exit, he might be able to make a move into turn 4, and the run and the exit is looking decent, but not decent enough. He's too far back to really make a move.
Absolutely. And once again, then, once these cars are easier to race, it doesn't make them a total walk in the park. So this is then running down the hill once more. So we've reached the highest point on the circuit on that straight between turns 3 and 4. And now we go on this downhill run all the way back to the beginning again. Through 7 and 8 now we go on board with the AlphaTauri and headed towards turn number 9. Now, once again, then we keep an eye on Danny here, but if you look at the rest of the field as well, everybody, with the exception of Elliott at the back, is within a second of the car in front. So, in another couple of laps' time, once they're... Oh, and Sally picks up a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. There's our first of the penalties dished out for track limits today, I think. And into turn 1 we go, then on board with the Ferrari of Kinsey. So around the corner they come then. They're now just 3/10 off the back of the Williams in front. And this is probably one of the closest battles that we are seeing in the field right now. That being said, though, once again, because we've got no DRS and because the field is so closely matched, there's no difference in car performance or anything like that, just set up, then this is proving a problem in terms of trying to then close onto the back and get close. But as we see here, we are starting to see now some gaps starting to form. We've got Rookie, for instance, down the order. They've just been overtaken by Will Gibson, but they were over 1 second off the back of Sally there. So things looking a bit more easy then for Sally in terms of their defense. They just have to focus on attack for now. But one driver who's definitely thinking about defense is Vincent Nyquist up in the lead with Dmitry Minich in second place at the moment. So Dmitry going through turn number 9, 10 just in front. And then this, of course, is the lap when DRS will be reactivated. Now, they won't get it down this... Oh, no, they will have it down the start-finish straight. It must have already been reactivated. And into turn number 1 we go then. And this will then be the big run up the hill. Now, all important, the exit here in turn number 1. If they're able to keep on the back of Vincent all the way up the hill here, they're going to get some lovely drag. All the way up they go. And is this going to be a move into turn number 3? There's contact. There's not much space given at all by the Alfa Romeo driver there. Moving into the path, in fact, of Vincent Nyquist, despite the fact that McLaren was still in front of them. And now the McLaren powers their way down this last DRS straight that we'll see on the lap. They stay to the inside and they defend the position, sticking nice and tight to the inside. But look at this then. Dimitri's then been threatened by Vincent behind, by Jeremy behind rather. And so now that means that they're going to be just constantly looking in the mirrors. Every time they make an overtake attempt and it doesn't quite work out, it's then going to put them on the back foot versus the drivers so incredibly close behind them.
Absolutely, and all it cost Dmitry was a lock-up into turn 4. It cost him quite a lot of time, and Jeremy had that sniff. He was just waiting for a mistake to happen, and that's all Jeremy needs to do right now. Play safe, play it cool, don't push too hard. But Dmitry must have used a truckload of ERS. So he is now in the dirt when it comes to his energy recovery system, which does allow, and you can see Jeremy, he is a little bit closer, but still not close enough. I think Dimitri's going to go for another attack into turn 4. So hold fire, let's stay on board with Dmitry because he's getting good runs, good exits. He's got 30% ERS left. You can just see out the bottom of the screen, but it ain't enough juice. It really is not at all. There's a bit of understeer, and that's going to bring the door open for Jeremy, but Jeremy not close enough to capitalize on it.
Absolutely, and then just while we were having a look at that incident there, of course, Sally has retired from and left the session, so both Mercedes out in round number 1 here at Austria. That's, of course, going to be of great significance as far as Helmut Marko's general disposition is concerned. But then in terms of this battle, it means that Mercedes score no points in the Constructors, and it gives those other drivers in the field just that little bit more of a chance to get into the points today. One thing I would note about Dmitry and their attack here is that it seems in the crucial acceleration zones they're actually not getting as good exits as Vincent, certainly on the last lap anyway, and you can see it again on this lap here. going into the braking zone at turn number 1, he was about 3.5 tenths behind. Now it's over 4 tenths, and it's only coming back towards Dimitri here because of the fact, and look at this, up the inside goes Fion. The other McLaren makes good on their initial qualifying runs and sends it up into P3 in this race. They also get DRS from the cars in front of them, and now they power on past the Red Bull of Jeremy there, and now will threaten the back of Dimitri. And as I say, Dimitri was really struggling in those braking zones off of the slow corners. Not the braking zones, sorry, the traction zones off of those slower corners. So as a result, because of the DRS, they were able to then get back into a position essentially that they were going into the braking zone, but they're not getting close enough to actually get a move done. And that's really where they're losing out in this fight. So ultimately, I think that for Dimitri, the best place to get the overtake to happen here is either going to be in an overcut or an undercut.
Absolutely, it's going to be a game of strategy, which we're closing in onto the pit stop window, so it won't be too long before we see cars coming in, going in for the pit stop. We've got to remember that some of the back lots have already pitted, and they're going for a two-stop strategy because of damage to the wing. Now, up ahead, oh, sorry, there's a bit of action. It's going to be Danny against Jeremy. Jeremy dropping down the field. Is there something wrong with his car? Because that's another position lost on another lap, and he's now going to have to look behind because it's going to be the Williams that's going to be next up the road. Is the tyres can't have gone already because the other drivers are still going quite nicely. So the only logical reason I can give for why he's dropping back is the wheel spin from traction exit can take out degradation. The braking, that could be another reason, as Kine is getting also so close to the Williams, and he's been pushing that Williams for quite a long time, and would not be surprised if down a straight he does make an overtake.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that maybe Jeremy might have fallen into that trap that a lot of drivers do in thinking that time trial setups might be as quick in the race as they are in time trial. Of course, we don't know that for certain. It could be that, as you say, it could just be a loss of concentration, or maybe just in terms of their acceleration out of those slower traction zones. But, you know, if you take a time trial setup as an example of one reason why they could be slower here, as they're now being threatened by Jerry, in the Williams, up the inside they go, and that's another position lost by the Red Bull driver. And now in the acceleration zone here, it looks relatively even, but now DRS open on both cars, and the Williams has the inside. Let's go all the way down to turn number 4 now, and the Williams brakes later, gets their nose and in whole car in front, and the Red Bull tries to sling it all the way around the outside and fight back here, but it's not to be. It's not to be at all. Jerry Van Bussel then gets up into P5. Brilliant bit of racing from them. And then behind the Red Bull next, as we're seeing on screen, is Kinty in the Ferrari. But as I say, it could be a time trial setup that's causing Jeremy their issues. It could also be mismanagement of their ERS. They're using too much of it. Then it could be that they're losing out in terms of them trying to defend or attack. And then, of course, as you say, it could just be too eager on the throttle.
It's any one of those. We just don't know. We don't have the throttle map or anything like that. We don't know. Will Gibson will get a 3-second time penalty, which won't help his cause up front. It's going to get to a bit of a battle for the lead as Dimitri is finally putting pressure onto Vincent. He needs a good exit out of turn 3 and a good run down to turn 4. Remember, Vincent does not have DRS. He goes to the inside. Dimitri going to look around the outside, but he's going to have to hold position just for now, and he has to be careful behind him because Fino is also gonna be onto the rear of that Alfa Romeo, waiting for a mistake to unfold. But Dimitri has to hold fire. But I don't think this battle is going to be over and done with, because he's held within 3/10, which is unusual through turns 6, 7, and 8. You never see a driver hold it that close. So is this going to be a turn 1 move that's going to come up? Well, we're about to head to it. DRS once again opened up. This is how short the laps are, ladies and gents, and how quickly we're going to get action. Breaking into the braking zone, 2 tenths behind. Not the best exit, but the flashing light at the rear of Dimitri is saying he is under 20% of ERS, and that is a danger zone for him. Closes in the gap. Can't do anything just yet. Turn 4, the next place to make a move. And again, he's going to have to look at the rear end, because Fino is going to be closing that gap as well. But once again, the Alfa Romeo can't do much.
No, absolutely not. I think that is really what's going to seal their fate here. That blinking red light on the back of the car. Now, you say 20%. I've heard even lower figures in the past. I've heard that if you got the flashing light, it means you're actually under 10%. So if it is as bad as that on board the Alfa Romeo, then it means that they are really trying to just dump everything, trying to get past this McLaren. But even if they did so, if Vincent is then running with a great deal more ERS, it'd be a very easy academic exercise and then just repassing the Alfa Romeo. This is not what they want to be doing at all, because it's going to then expose them to the chasing pack. As we're now seeing with Fion, they are now closer to Dimitri than Dimitri is to Vincent, and this is despite the fact that Dimitri, of course, has DRS and Vincent does not. Look at this again, out of turn number 1, Vincent pulls a gap. It's not a very large one, but they do start to pull a gap on Dimitri. And now look at how close the Alfa and the McLaren are. Look at this, the two McLarens, Linus Stern into turn number 3, then both down the outside. Dimitri tries a move up the inside. I think it's going to mean that they actually lose a position rather than gain one. Look at this now, the McLaren in the chase here. Fion goes up to their inside. It's going to be a McLaren 1-2 in Austria. Look at that, up the inside. Fion gets the move done. Dimitri goes down to 3rd. And that means that Vincent and Fion McKee now lead the Austrian Grand Prix.
How much do you want to hear those words in real F1 as well? Because a McLaren 1-2, and what a work by Fion, showing masterclass, going through the pack as well. He didn't qualify all too well, and he's now up into 2nd before the pit stops have started. And as I say that, a couple have gone into pits. Danny, Jeremy into the pits, and they will go and try and undercut the people ahead. Particularly keep an eye out for Danny. He was on the rear pack of all this. But Dimitri, I don't think he's happy with this. Look at his pounce. He's ready to fight back 2nd place and claim his position on the 2nd step. But no, again, that red warning light is not helping him at all right now, and he's got nothing. Look, 9% on the steering wheel. There is nothing left for him to give.
Absolutely not. No, if you deployed all of that, you'd run out by the time you end up getting to turn number 4, never mind to the start-finish line. So it's a really tricky time for the Alfa Romeo. And then, of course, because it's such a short pit stop time in Austria, you're not going to gain a huge amount of time of ERS back in the pit stop. But now, look at this then. Danny heads up into P10. And that was a crucial move. That gets them ahead of a car that has not stopped, and therefore allows them to now start chasing on after that pack ahead. They're going to have the fresh tyres. They're, of course, on this lap going to be slower overall because they've got that heat cycle to go through in the tyres. Of course, they come out of the blankets. The surface temperature is up to temperature, but the core temperature of the tyre, the tyre carcass, is not. And so therefore, on this first out lap, Danny is going to be slower than he will be in a few laps' time. So realistically, it's up to the top front runners now. Do they have enough pace where they think they can then overcome Danny later on in the race, or do they start to pit earlier and then get out ahead of them before their tyres come up to temperature? Well, by this time, they will have come up to temperature. And now headed through turn number 1. Look at this then. They've been able to get by Kinty. Kinty has only just come out of the pit lane. There you can see the Ferrari chasing on after the teammate and after Jeremy. And Jeremy also behind Danny here as well. So Jeremy, of course, was in 4th before all of this pit stop. But look at this, up the inside goes Will Gibson. They say, no, I've been overtaken by one car with brand new tyres already. Thanks, I don't want it to happen again. Unfortunately for you, Will, I think that it is going to happen. And there we go, Jeremy goes up into P number 8 there. And Danny in 7th continues to pound round and set some good lap times.
Absolutely, it's been brilliant. It's a bit further back. Cozzy going side by side through turn 6. He's definitely going ballsy as he's trying to make a move up the inside. That's not an area you usually see overtakes. But you know what? Hats off to it for the attempt. Dimitri into the pits. This is critical. Where is this man going to come out? We will keep an eye on to Danny because that's who he's trying to face off with. Danny going purple throughout. Will go round the first corner. Where is Dimitri? He is behind, and it means Danny has gained a position, and we knew Dimitri was right on the rear end of both of the McLarens. So come when the McLarens pit, this is danger zone because it could be Danny stealing the race from the pit stops. But you have to remember, he did pit 2 laps earlier. So we'll keep an eye out of what the front runners are going to do.
Of course, yeah, absolutely, you're right. And that tyre age is going to be the interesting thing. Now look at the sky as well. It's very, very grey as we now get the lead McLaren of Vincent into the pits. His teammate comes very quick to through turn number 9 and 10 there, almost taking out the back end of his teammate there. I think it's almost certain at this point that Vincent will not come back out in the lead of this race or even in the net lead of this race, but they will have tyres those 3 laps fresher than what we see on board with the other car. And the real question here, I think, is that those starting on the hard tyres, is anybody going to try and drag out those hards all the way to, say, lap 26, so then they can do 10 laps of blasting on soft tyres, because that would then really introduce a completely different dynamic into the mix here. Vincent comes out then just behind Danny. So they have been able to gain a huge amount of time on their former rivals, Jeremy and Dimitri. This is despite the fact that Jeremy and Dimitri, of course, have now had that lap or two to get their tyres up to temperature, and away they go. But you can see there the weaving on the straights. Vincent is desperate to get that temperature into their tyres. And now as they come down into the braking zone for 4, will they lose time or will they gain it versus Danny ahead? They actually lose it. So there you go then. That is the effect of the colder tyres. And the key thing really for Vincent here is they need to stay within that DRS window, because if they are able to do that, they will then get that defence on the start-finish straights as Will Gibson gets a time penalty. But for then the likes of Danny up in front, if they're able to break that toe, then it makes their life so much easier. Fionn and Jerry into the pits then, the McLaren and the Williams who were leading for that last lap. And now coming round turns 9 and 10, whereabouts will they shape out versus the rest of the field here? Will the overcut have worked as well for them as it has for Vincent here? We'll find out in a few moments' time. Dimitri sets a new fastest lap of the Grand Prix. And into turn 1 we go then. And now the tyres will be up to temperature for Vincent. They are within DRS. And oh no, a safety car or a virtual safety car has been called. Which one is it?
It's going to be a full safety car, I believe. Yeah, SC on the board just in time. And I tell you who's going to actually gain an advantage. This man here, Rookie. So, yes, he is within 10 seconds behind Frenick. Because I think Frenick also needs to pit as well. So, it's about, what, yeah, 10 seconds between Danny, who is technically net lead of this race. But Rookie is going to actually gain quite a few positions when he comes into the pit. So this is prime opportunity for anybody who hasn't done it yet. Danny showing himself that pitting earlier has worked out well, and especially when the safety car has come out at a time he so desperately needed. It's almost like it's been gifted on a platter.
Absolutely. Big beneficiaries in that as well, I think, would have been Fionn McKee and Jerry Van Bussel, because for both of those drivers, they've now come back out with drivers behind them on already up to temperature tyres, drivers who are quick, the likes of Cosy and Roman, for instance. And as a result of the safety car, it means that they cannot be overtaken. So now they can just focus on getting their tyres warmed up and not have to worry about losing their position. Certainly one driver not worried about losing position is Danny. Here they are then. They take the lead of the race for the first time. And they lead it from our most of the race leader so far, that being Vincent Nyquist, who of course is behind. And the Aston Martin safety car eventually gets going and starts pootling along. But as we watch it then, we've got Vincent in second. We've got Kinty in third, who's done incredibly well in the Ferrari with the use of strategy and a little bit of luck there as well. Dimitri in fourth, Jeremy in fifth, Fionn in sixth, Jerry Van Bussel in seventh, Cosy in eighth, Roman in 9th, Rookie in 10th, Dazed Rhombus in 11th. Very good race for them so far, starting 19th, of course, if you remember. Then we've got Alex Barry in 12th, Mattia De Campo in 13th. We have Franek in 14th, Elliott in 15th, and then Norbert in 16th, and Mace at the back of the field currently, with a time penalty as well, it must be said. So there we are, things go from bad to worse for Mace, and as we go then, everybody is calming down, they're getting their tyres warmed up. This is, I believe, the first lap under safety car, so we've got at least one more to go. If not, more likely, another two. So there we are then. So Reese, now that we've got this quiet moment in amongst all of the racing, what are your thoughts so far? What do you think in terms of any strategy options that may now remain available to the drivers? And then for those who may have been holding out for this safety car?
I don't feel there's many strategy options left. A lot of the drivers have gone to the medium, just to confirm my suspicions. Yeah, a lot of people have gone to mediums, and Norbert's gone for the softs down in 16th. So, you know, why not go for it? We're roughly with just 12 laps to go. It's going to be essentially a sprint now. Everyone's going to push hard. Everyone's going to go for it. No one's going to want to pit unless there is damage. That is the only time that they will pit is if there is damage. I want to quickly mention Fionn because he's down in 6th, but we've seen him lower. And this man just comes through the field. He just has a natural pace about him. He went from, what was it? I think he was 8th to start off the race, putting himself up to 2nd. 12 laps to go, possibly 11 to work with. I'll tell you what, I will put money down that he gets somewhere on the podium. That is how confident I am from what I've seen today. But Dimitri in 4th, now he's on fresh tyres, he's going to also recharge his ERS, could also be an effect or a part of this kind of the show.
Absolutely, yeah. So we've got a request in the YouTube chat. Hello, YouTube chat. I'm watching you, don't you worry. We've got Marley Gaming asking for a tyre recap, please. If you wouldn't mind just popping the tyres back up for us again, at least we can talk you through that. So, of course, Norbert, as we say, was up on the soft tyres. They're only as old as the safety car period. Then also got Rookie on the hards. We've also now got Mattia De Campo going into the pits and getting a set of softs on. So this again is that area where I was talking about. You get to sort of lap 25, lap 26. Is that when you then start to see drivers who may have been holding out for a safety car or just going very long on their hard tyre stint, they can then go onto softs and certainly get to the end from here. Because of course the tyre wear isn't scripted in this game, as you may well have seen from a popular YouTube video of hello commentators, says Tom Tom. Hello. Reese, we're going to say hello?
Yeah.
Tom.
Hi, Tom Tom.
Yeah.
Can you direct me to
Hello,
Austria so I can go and watch this live?
Yeah, exactly. So it's away we go then. Safety car is in this lap, but yes, the rest of the field then on medium tyres. But the main players that we need to worry about here are the likes of Danny and Kinty, who went in just a bit before the majority of this group up at the front, whereas then Vincent Nyquist and Dimitri came in around about the same time. Dimitri, I think, attempted the undercut, but it didn't quite work out for them. And then, of course, Fionn and Jerry amongst the youngest of those tyres in that front part of the field, because they, of course, pitted right as this safety car was called. Do you think the softs can hold on? I certainly think so to the end of this race if the drivers don't completely abuse them. But now, as we go, it looks like there's one driver who's definitely switched on at this restart, and that is Vincent Nyquist. They have stuck very close indeed to the back of Danny here on the restart, and they have made sure to keep that gap within about 0.3 of a second. It's now 2.5 of a second as they head into turn number 1, and it looks like they've been a bit too greedy of Danny on the turn number 1 curbs there, and they lost just a bit of time. The gap managed to extend up to about 4.5 of a second or so, and now it's back down to about 3.5. So a poor exit there, and then further back in the field we can see something there between a Williams. I think the Williams may have been having a look to the inside of the McLaren of Fionn there, but it hasn't come off for them. So as we go down this straight, then again, no DRS in operation until the 3rd lap of running after the safety car. This is only the first, and now to the outside goes the Williams. It's side by side with the McLaren. Fionn there defending as much as they possibly can, using a bit of ERS on the exit, I'm sure, but now it's going to mean they have to surrender the position, because on the inside of turn number 6 they end up losing out. But now it's to the inside again of turn number 7, and will they be given the space as they gave the space to Jerry? Rather, they are given the space, but Jerry is able to swoop round the outside, and that's a position gained for the Williams driver.
Wow, that is ballsy, and congratulations for both for spatial awareness. Normally moves like that, you see them go into each other and it's a disaster, but Fionn and Jerry playing it perfectly. Well done, Jerry, for gaining a position. In regards to Vincent, I'm surprised he wasn't able to make the pounce that he would have, and he's not closed up to Danny in the same way I expected. And that being said, you know, you've got the likes of Kai. Oh god, the name's got out of my head. Kinty? I can't say the name. Help me out. Kinty, there we go. Thank you. Kinty's closed up quite nicely.
I was wondering for a second.
Dyslexia is a absolute horrible thing, trust me. I can't read half the time. As Kinty's also been making ground, he's pushing Vincent quite a lot and keeping it close, and then Dimitri a bit further back from them. I say a bit further, he's right on the rear end. I wouldn't be surprised if next lap that move happens, because he is pushing hard. Dimitri's got some boiled blood right now, some revenge to come off. and it's going to be down to this lap most likely as Jeremy gets another 3-second time penalty. He's pushing too hard, way too hard, as DRS becomes enabled. Let's just keep an eye on Dimitri because he's just dipped in the .2s. This could be the overtake he needs. Of course, Danny's got no DRS. He's the leader of this race, so nothing to defend with. As a bit further back, who is that? That is the Williams and the Red Bull of Jeremy and Jerry. Jerry getting a lovely move into turn 3, and that's the type of racing we want to see. But I don't think Jeremy is going to give in too easily, but he will have to concede.
He absolutely will. Yeah, that is another position gain for Jerry then. I think of the two drivers who pitted whilst everybody was coming in during safety car, I think we may have backed the wrong horse there. Fionn has not been able to make any progress, but Jerry very much doing so. However, it's the McLaren teammate of Fionn who we're interested in now. We can see them there. Vincent Nyquist is keeping very much in touch with the car in front. They're within 0.2 of a second headed into the braking zone of turn number 9, then through 9 itself. They lose a little bit of time, to be expected because of the dirty air, which hasn't been entirely eradicated in Formula 1 with these new rules, but it has been severely reduced. So now into turn number 1 we go then, and once more it's a good bit of a run here for Vincent Nyquist. They seem to have gotten a very good run indeed, and now headed up towards turn number 3. Will they make the move headed into 3, or will they wait until they got on the straight? No, it's going to be straight to the inside, straight away, and now up the inside goes Vincent Nyquist to retake the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix, but they've briefly lost it there. Back to Danny indeed, and now DRS is open once again on the McLaren. Are they going to go for the dive to the inside? Yes, they are, and up to the inside they go, and that is the move done, and the position reclaimed for Vincent Nyquist, and Danny has fallen down the order. What has happened to Danny? There was no contact between him and Vincent, but he just catapulted down the order. I think there may have been some contact from the cars behind, the likes of Kinty or Dimitri or someone must have made some sort of contact. And look at this then, Fionn out of nowhere has been able to overtake both Jeremy and Jerry, becoming a P4 for the McLaren.
I told you, keep an eye on Theon. He was going to come out of nowhere, and he does effortlessly when the mistake is caused. And I think from where either Danny spun, and I feel it was a spin, that has just allowed the pack to open up. And what I say in almost all my commentary, when one person makes a mistake, the whole pack goes crazy. It just causes chaos because they go, yes, it's an opportunity to go. Much like Dimitri right now, pushing the rear end of Kinty as, whoa, Theon, going absolutely late. Okay, might be a technical glitch, but either way, dives down the inside, isn't successful, and here comes Dimitri. Is he got the move? Fakes it, decides not to. You're going to have to wait patiently for the next lap. But as I was saying, yeah, people go crazy when somebody just goes for one move because it opens up the opportunity for someone else to have a go.
Absolutely it does, yeah, and if we think back to the real world a number of years ago, Australian Grand Prix, Antonio Giovinazzi leading a train of much faster cars who were not able to get a move done until eventually Lando Norris was able to get the move done. Jeremy has fallen down the order, is going very slowly indeed. There must have been some sort of contact or something to provoke that, although that being said, no visible damage to their front wing. But it does look as though they are struggling with a bit of turn in there. So, unfortunate for the Red Bull driver, falling back down to the back of the pack because of how tightly everybody is packed together here in this race. Even without the safety car, people were very, very close together. And now, we can see here, Kinty is having a think about it, but not as much as a think as Fionn up the inside of Dimitri. And look at that, the McLaren gets another move done in another lap. Brilliant bit of racing from them, and now they're just one position away, one Ferrari away from delivering the best team result that it's possible to do.
Yet it's not too much work for him as well because he's been pouncing. Yes, a bit docile at the start, but that's come about. Also, somehow, Jerry's just overtaken Dimitri into turn 6. Wow. The full moon's not out here. I can tell you that bit for sure, but they're behaving like it's the full moon. And I'm speechless because that happened so quickly. Does Dimitri have anything to fight back with? That's the question. He gets a good run out of turn 10, but it ain't enough. It really isn't. And to tell you who has got a good exit, it's going to be, surprise, surprise, Fionn, who does get a good exit, and he's closing down that gap. I think, and a prediction, not this lap, but we might be seeing some moves next lap to see a McLaren 1-2.
Absolutely incredibly close, but there's not much time left to get it all done. If Fion wants to make it onto that second step of the podium, or maybe even threaten their teammate for first, then it's going to need to be done very shortly indeed. We have currently on the 32nd lap of this 36 lap Austrian Grand Prix, and now the drivers are really going to be getting down to brass tacks, and that's then a time penalty for Dimitri, so including the use of ERS to a liberal degree. They've also been using track limits very liberally as well, and so much so that the stewards have elected to give them a 3-second time penalty. So that will mean they will catapult down the order at the end of this race, possibly finishing outside the points. Look at that there. 11th place is Norbert, and they are 2.6 seconds ahead of then the car in front of them, 2.6 behind rather the car in front of them. So Dimitri with 3 seconds, with the field all within DRS of one another down to that point, it could be they fall all the way out the points. But now look at this then, Fion, as you were already predicting, look at this then, boxed out the Ferrari because of the slow-moving McLaren in front of them, and then the charging one up there inside. It then means that Fion moves into P2, and now the defend down in towards turn number 4. It's not over just yet, as Jeremy sets the new fastest lap of the race, but now with defense to the inside, Fion is able to secure second place, and that means the McLarens now lead the Austrian Grand Prix as a 1-2. It's like Monza all over again, and I'm all here for it.
I'm all here for it too. McLaren 1-2. Yeehaw! Let's get into it, boys. Talking of yeehaws, and definitely going to be happy with his performance. He bigged himself up. He made himself known with a bold statement to you. I've got to be honest, Dan. He made a bold statement to you in DMs. Cozzy up in 6th, holding his own in F5. And wow, not doing a great start. Starting in the teens all the way up in 6th. So hats off to him. He's been an underdog throughout the rear of the pack. But I've got a feeling, shall we make a last prediction? Last lap battle. It's going to be in the McLarens. Absolutely. Actually, you know what? I think it's going to be next lap. It's going to be next lap. Fion is not done. He is wanting the win because he is still pushing. The lap times are closing down. He is getting closer. He's rounding turn 4, and look at this. 0.3, and he's going to push into the 0.2s in these sections, and ooh-wee, it's getting spicy.
It certainly is. Things are getting incredibly close between these two. Vincent seems to have had a handle on this race the entire time, but then all of a sudden Fion has come challenging and roaring through the pack, overtaking car after car and getting themselves into a position now where they are potentially threatening for the lead. Of course, they have to bear in mind that one most important rule in motorsport: do not hit your teammate. Otherwise, the ghost of Ron Dennis, he's not dead, don't worry, but he will still be very, very, very upset if these two McLarens end up clattering into one another. They go through turn number 1, then it looks like a better exit for Vincent out of that initial traction zone, but then with the DRS, Fion is able to then just start to close on in. It's down to about 3.5 tenths of a second, then they go into the braking zone. It's then turning in nicely, and it looks like the gap stays, broadly speaking, where it was. Then on acceleration, it's again just a brief bit of road gained by Vincent, but then the DRS comes so quickly after turn number 3 that then Fion is getting closer and closer all the time. If they can maintain this sort of a gap throughout the rest of the lap and then into those DRS zones, it could be on the final lap. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see and stick with this for the entirety of the next lap and a half of this Austrian Grand Prix. It's all come down to this. A McLaren 1-2 in Austria. This such thing has not been seen since 1988. It's an incredible display between these drivers, and as they head on down towards the last couple of corners, then let's go through this final lap with Fion and Vincent here. So through turn number 10, then the gap is around 3.5 tenths of a second or so between the two McLarens. Now as they head down the start-finish straights, it will not be DRS initially, but now it opens up for Fion. And now they're getting nice and close into turn number 1, about 2 tenths of a second or so. Coming out of the traction zone there, it's then a big time loss for Fion. It's about half a second now, the gap between the pair of them. It's come down, though, down to 4 tenths now, about 3 tenths or so. And now headed into that braking zone for turn number 3, rather. It's then headed up the hill. And oh, is that a mistake from the McLaren in front? I think it is. The gap suddenly came down from 4 to about 2 tenths of a second, but will they be close enough headed into turn number 4? I don't think they will. And that means then that the last real overtaking opportunity is gone for Fion, unless something miraculous happens throughout the rest of this lap. It looks like Vincent is gonna on, and it will be a McLaren 1-2, just not in the favour of Fionn here, who had been charging up the field and was desperate to get themselves into the right position, but they're going to have to settle for second best on this occasion. It seems like, unless there is a sudden lock-up in either of these last couple of corners. Heading down towards turn number 9 then, they just have to keep it inside the white lines. Through 9 they go, into 10, and it will be a McLaren 1-2. Leading across the line is Vincent Nyquist, who takes the first win of the season here in season 31 of PSGL PC for F5.
What a battle and what a run by Fionn. Fionn, I wanted to mention this a bit earlier. Fionn on the 35th lap didn't use his ERS at all. Not a single usage, so he was saving as much as he could to fight Vincent at the end. Unfortunately, the traction at the exit of turn 3 cost him dramatically. He wasn't able to get the attack on the end, and he ended up staying in P2. But wow, that is amazing. Guys, put your requests on who you think driver of the day is. My vote's on Fionn, because that run was ecstatic.
I think I'd have to agree with you. Fionn there, driver of the day for me. The game awards it to Mattia De Campo, certainly a driver noteworthy of it, having catapulted themselves up the field versus their starting position. But certainly for me, in terms of that battle up at the front, Fionn without a doubt driver of the day amongst those guys. We have to have another look in terms of what we see throughout the rest of the field, of course, and maybe just have a look at some at the overall results in just a few moments' time. But what a brilliant race then. So, as we see then on our screens, a McLaren driver comes out in first position with second place as well for the team from Woking. And then alongside them, their old rival Ferrari stand in third place. And that is your podium today. So, to give you the full rundown of the results then, we have Vincent Nyquist winning this first round in PCF5 from their teammate Fionn McKee. Then we have Kinsey, and then from fourth down we have Jerry, we have Dimitri, we have Mattia, we have Franek, we have Kozzy, Dazed Rhombus, a very good drive from them from 19th to finish 9th. Then Alex, Danny, Roman, Elliot, Norbert, Jeremy, Mace, Rookie, Will Gibson, Sally, and Yare finishes out the field. Both Mercedes DNFing from this race today, one Aston and one Ferrari as well. So expect to see those teams coming back towards the end of the season. And, well, would you look at that then? That's first round of the season done. And if that's how it's going to be for the rest of the season, sign me up. That's a good bit of watching there, I think.
Absolutely. And it just shows, I said to the guys, give us some action, and I guess my motivational speech did work. There was action left, right, and centre. Great work with strategy. There was also a play with just the overtakes, raw pace. It's definitely going to shape up to be quite an interesting championship come in F5. I don't know what it's like elsewhere, but hey, I'm down for this. I'm always down for such high octane action. You know what? Let's just get out there. If this ends up being McLaren 1-2 throughout, I'm down for that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm not afraid to let my bias show. I'm not at all. And McLaren will be my team forever and ever in the real world for sure. And so to see them doing well in the virtual one as well is not bad at all. So in terms of that, then it's McLaren taking full honours in terms of that first round of the season. To give you some quick reminder in terms of PSGL. In terms of the point system, it's not quite like we see in modern Formula 1, where the winning driver gets 25th, the next gets 18th, and 18 points rather, and so on. Instead, the point system is as follows. It's the top 10 who do score points, much like modern Formula 1, but it is distributed differently. It is 16 points for the win, 12th for second, 10th for third, and then from fourth down we have 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 point. There's also a point for fastest lap if the owner of the fastest lap is inside the top 10, which of course is something which I don't think we saw today. I think it was Jeremy who ended up taking that fastest lap, and they of course finished outside of the top 10. So there we have it then, everybody. That is your first round of the season. Any final thoughts from you there, Reese?
What else do you say from that? Literally, you can't say much more from that except for what racing have we got in F5. Absolutely amazing. Of course, the racing doesn't have to end. Next week, we will be heading over to the United States of America. Not in Austin, we're going to Miami. We're going to Miami. And we're going to be going out on the new track. And we've had social races there. It's definitely a track that sparks up a lot of fun. Particularly, I'll tell you a couple of corners that definitely spark my interest. If I can find my track map somewhere. I've lost it. There it is. So turns, we definitely see action turns 1, turn 11, and turn 17, and even sometimes into turn 4 as well. So again, another overtake heavy track coming up.
Absolutely, yeah. So it will be very fun, I'm sure. I would certainly hope that you'll join us, of course, next week, same time, same place, here on the PSGL channel. And in terms of us then, I have been Daniel Gilligan. Alongside me in the virtual commentary box today, and our virtual director as well, seeing all the wonderful things that you've seen today from a technical point of view, is, of course, Rhys Gregory. Thank you very much for watching, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.